All right, and welcome back to Bibliophile. I am so excited about my guest today. She and I have known each other for a long time, and as you know, Bibliophile is all about the author journey and all of the different components that make for a book that's worth reading and also that allow an author to be successful in their craft. And I have with me today Carolyn Greiner, who is a friend of mine. Like I said, we've known each other for a long time, and she graciously, right from the beginning with book 1 in my Dimensional Alliance series, offered to be a beta reader. And I am so pleased to have her with me today. Welcome, Carolyn. We're glad you're here.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So just a little background about beta readers and their function. A beta reader, well, there's a lot of different ways that different authors use beta readers. Some authors say, okay, I'll wait till I've got everything done and almost ready to publish, and then I'll go ahead and turn it over to the beta readers. I did things a little differently. I started right from the beginning, putting out like 10 chapters at a time so that my beta readers could kind of follow along in my journey and then get the feedback as I was going along, especially early on if there was any plot conflicts or things like that, but also, the typos, that kind of cool stuff. But beta readers are not necessarily proofreaders. And so some beta readers are more thorough than others. Some are just more about, okay, do you like the story? Don't you like the story? What do you think about the characters? That sort of thing. Carolyn is a very extremely enthusiastic beta reader, and she plunged right in right from the beginning with not just editing but proofreading, and I am just so pleased to have her. Carolyn, what made you decide to go ahead and try this thing?
Well, I like to read, for one, but I don't know. I really enjoy, as I read, I like to check for typos and grammatical. I've done that for years. It's something that I quite enjoy. And so, I don't know, I was curious what you might write. And your way of putting out these little cliffhangers by sending part of the story, oh, well, I want to see what else there is. It was good. It kind of hung us along. It's like, okay, where's the next part? I want this.
Well, I think that one of the benefits for me was right from the beginning to find out if this was even worth trying to publish or not. And quite frankly, there's a trepidation on my side. And so when I get these little edits that would come to you from you and the other people that were beta reading for me, it was like, oh, I wonder what's in it this time. But I loved the way that you and my other beta readers approach this. Let's talk about the difference between criticism and helpful editing comments.
Sure.
Okay, so you chose to be very careful about the way you worded things and whatnot. Did you ever feel like, oh my goodness, this is really going to hurt her feelings?
Oh, no. I didn't really feel that way because I know that you want to have a good finished product. And I guess maybe initially, because when I first came on board about it, you had already pretty much written the book, and I had come to visit your house and wanted to get an autographed copy. And so I did that, and so here you had this finished product that had been to print already, and then I found all these typos in there, and that's when I came on board. And it was like, oh, I hope she's not upset. I mean, how's this going to work because it's already been print? And, well, there can be some collector editions here shortly because, after you said that it could be adjusted after the fact.
Right.
And so it was like, wow, there's a lot of typos. I need to be on board about this because she needs me.
Yeah, well, and what's really interesting is I'd already gotten a professional proofreader and a professional editor paid the money to do that editing for me. And so one of the nice things about self-publishing is if you get it out there and then realize, oh, this needs to be corrected, you can actually correct it for future readers. Now, I guess maybe that makes some of my original copies of the book collector's editions because, it's kind of like, when you've got a record label that's got a typo on it or something, and later on when they're rich and famous, not yet, but it really makes such a difference for somebody like me to know that there are eyes out there that see things that I miss. And one of the issues is, and I think that you'll agree that this is kind of a normal thing, is when I read things that I've written, my brain automatically corrects the things that my eyes are seeing so that it reads well. It's kind of like those puzzles where they write something that's none of it is really spelled properly, but you're still able to read it because it's close enough. Mm-hmm. And so as you're going through this and reading all of these things, I noticed that you got also better at doing this. What are some of the techniques that you use when you're going through this stuff to catch these things that we miss?
Well, I open up a Word document, excuse me, and I'll make, as we come to each character in the story, I'll put the spelling of the name on that Word document so that when I see it again, I can see whether or not it flip-flopped around as far as what the spelling was. Like, who's that? So I'll have that kind of set up, and then I just kind of work along with that. I'm a visual person. I don't have my file open, so it's a little more challenging. But yeah, I like to be able to just go through and check for things. And so if I think that I've read something about a particular one, then...
Okay, but I also noticed that you are really good about catching things. This long story, these books are close to 400 pages long, this long story, and now we're in book 2 or book 3, and you're saying, oh, wait a minute, this doesn't match with this thing in book 1. We need to fix that. How do you do that?
Well, so like I said, I have this Word document that I do, and I have it set up for each of them. And then in addition to that, I use the editing format thing, the review part of the not Word Perfect, and my Microsoft Word, so I use that editing feature within it, so it shows the markup and the comments, and so I'll make the comments on that within that own copy, and I change the name of the document that you send me so that it says that I'm doing the edits. I make it that way, and that way that's the one that I go to, and I'll check it on that. And then between that and then the Word document that I have, then I'll make my little notes between the two. And the other part is I just kind of pull it out of my brain.
Well, you have a really good way of recollecting different little tiny details about some of these characters, and I go, how did she remember that? I wrote it and I didn't remember that. Which is really an interesting part of this whole process, is you go along and you would say, okay, so the author should be the expert about everything in these books. But I have to tell you that I go back through as I'm doing these full edits that I mean, each one of these books has been edited like 8 or 9 times before it ever goes to print, and we still find little thises and that's. But I've I've read these books over and over and over again besides writing them initially in the first place. And I don't always remember, oh, well, this person said this, not this person. And I go and make a quote and it's not the person that I thought it was. Also, of course, there's the Bert and Bob situation that we went through. And you were really good to catch whether I was talking about Bert or Bob, because sometimes I would have the name change like 3 or 4 times using the same character. It's kind of hard when they both start with a B and they're very close. They're just for background for people who haven't read the books. Bert and Bob are close friends, and so they often appear in the same scenes together. And oftentimes when I'm thinking of, it's like your kids, right? You have this whole list of kids, and sometimes you have to go through the entire list, including the names of the dog and the cat, before you get the one that you really are trying to get the attention of. But I have to say that you've really stuck with it. Are you considering at all just maybe doing this and getting paid for it? Because you're actually very clever at it.
Well, that I'm a grandma, whatever, and I'm not doing any other work at this time. I have another friend, I guess it would be my current husband's ex-wife's sister, I think, or sister-in-law, I guess it is. Anyway, she just wrote a novella, however you pronounce that, and asked for beta readers. And so I said, oh, I'm happy to do that. And so I just did her little, I think it's like a 150-page book, which was short, which was easy. But I read it a couple times and did a review on it. And she really appreciated it, because not only did I answer her questions that you would normally have of your beta reader, which is stuff like, what did you think of the plot? Were there any holes in it? And did you like the people by the end of the story? And that sort of stuff. Then I was able to also catch the typos and the grammatical stuff. And like, this sentences really doesn't read very well. When I read this, I end up rereading it and rereading it some more. So it needs to be rearranged. And so then I would offer a suggestion of something, another way that she could word it, or that you could reword something, and then it reads clearly, and then I'm not stumbling over it. And I think that's the big thing that's important when you're reading a story, is you don't want to be stumbling over the words.
Right. And it's a lot more than just punctuation and typos. It's about the flow of the story, the plot arc. Is this too intense? Is it not intense enough? One of the recommendations you and other beta readers made to me was, in that second book, you need to have a really good cliffhanger at the end. I think I managed that. But I had a lot of help. So it's collaboration is kind of tricky. And when you've got something that is as complex as any book or novel is, the average self-published writer like myself, we're in this little kind of a vacuum until we bring other people into the process. And we have to be appreciative and willing to work with the people who are helping us. For instance, we interviewed Kristen Nicely, who did such a nice job on our House on Infinity Loop audiobook. That was a collaboration process. The covers and the beta readers. Authors, I think one of our big skills that we need to learn is how to work with other people, not getting our feelings hurt, recognizing that everything's not going to be perfect. And that back and forth, it just enriches the whole project and makes it so much better.
Well, I think too, when you're writing a story, it's kind of like the way that we read a story. But your fingers are flying along at such a pace, you don't necessarily go back and reread. If you just finish writing, as you're writing it to make sure that you got everything right, you're just telling the story. So you were telling the story like you would verbally tell a story to a child, for example. Your fingers are flying away. Well, of course there's going to be some wiggles because your fingers don't always obey what your mind is telling it to do, right? And so I think that's part of what's important to remember. Of course, there'll be some errors. I am not a perfect typer. I promise you that. So I think we all do that.
Right. Well, and you're right. It's all about getting that story out. That's the first thing. And I talk to a lot of beginning writers, and they're like, oh, I'm constantly going back and, blah, blah, blah. And I say, you know what? Just get the story out there. Get it on paper. You can always edit it later. Or the ones that think that once they've written it down, that all they have to do now is publish it, that they don't have to go back. There is no such thing as a perfect first draft. It doesn't happen.
Except for your name is Sam Dillabough. I'm bored of yours. I have to share a story with you. I hope it doesn't interfere with the purpose of this. When he was in high school, he would be reading his history book. And while he was reading that history book, he would have the radio on with this pump up the jam, that type of thing, right? So he's got this radio going. He's singing to the music while he's reading this information and withdrawing the information from the book and writing whatever book report or something that he's supposed to be doing and getting A's on this draft and not redoing it. So I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, I don't know. Some people's brains just work differently, right? But even then, when we're talking about a novel, a report is one thing. A novel is something completely different. As far as the length and the breadth and the fact that it's coming completely out of your head and not from, a reference book or somebody else's thoughts and whatnot. But yeah, thanks for sharing. People's brains do work differently. And Sam, pay attention. Can you still do that? I'm wondering if now at this age he can still do that. That's just amazing. Anyhow, I wanted to thank you for, first of all, just being there with the beta reading thing. Next book is in the process. I'll be sending some more chapters out here in a little bit. But your help and the help of the beta readers in that group have been so amazing for me. And I think that's another thing that's really important, is that appreciation. Thank you also for coming on the show today and talking about editing and beta reading and all those kinds of things. And so we'll see you next time on Bibliophile. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day.